Sippers, welcome to this episode of the Tea With Me podcast with me, Shane Todd. It's a guest episode. Before we get into it, let me plug two things. Number one, this podcast is sponsored by supportlocalni.com. You know, coming up to Christmas, everybody's just buying gifts on Amazon. You know, maybe you're venturing out and going to the Spar to buy people stuff. You know, your local convenience store. What you want to do is go to supportlocalni.com. It's essentially an Amazon for local businesses. We've got to support local businesses at this time. It's a great idea. It's a great concept. It's essentially a website that shows you all these local businesses. It gives you ideas for gifts. Like, I'm on it right now. I'm seeing, you know, stationery. I'm seeing framed prints. I'm seeing fudge. You know, and fudge is great because it's very fun to say and it's nice to eat. I'm seeing makeup studios. I'm seeing art. NI Coffee Company, designs, dance school. I mean, what I'm saying is they've got it all. So head over there, supportlocalni.com. Great for Christmas gifts. Have a look, see what's happening. We'll link to it in the description of this episode. I've also got a plug Patreon, which is patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. You can get a bonus episode every week. Me and producer Dan. There's my stand-up special from last year at the Waterfront on there, and a lot more stuff coming up to Christmas. We're going to have some more episodes. We do 2 a week at the minute, but we'll maybe add some more coming up to Christmas and that in-between New Year period where everybody just, you know, lies on their side and feels fat. So at the minute, we've banked quite a few episodes, and I've got to say, they've been a hell of a lot of fun. The Paddy McDonald episode went out last week. It was great. This episode is no different. I'm getting a comedian friend in. My friend is Conor Keys. Conor does the Deck, Chair and Yums podcast with Mickey Bartlett, which is absolutely amazing. Definitely check that out. And Conor and I have been gigging together for, well, you know what? We've already actually recorded the episode. And Conor is he's off camera here for about 10 years we've known each other. Yeah, 10 years. He's over there, but I'm acting like this is done before he arrives. But actually, we've already done the episode. Spoiler alert, it was a hell of a lot of fun. And we got into a lot of stuff. You know, so I'm expecting the comment section to be pretty busy after this one. So yeah, we've been gigging together for about 10 years. You know, Conor's a great guy. He's there. You know what I mean? Out of the corner of my eye, I can see his trainers. But yeah, we talk about Daly's Comedy Club. We talk about old experiences of gigging. And the Deck, Chair and Yums podcast, if you haven't listened, and I implore you to do it, they talk a lot about conspiracy theories. So we get into a lot of that. And it's difficult for me to get into that kind of thing for two reasons. Number one, I'm not that intelligent. And number two, I'm in the Illuminati, so it's hard for me to really let go on this kind of thing. But yeah, we have a hell of a lot of fun. You'll enjoy this episode. It's with Conor Keys. Let's enjoy this episode of the Tea With Me podcast. You like my plant?
I love your plant, actually. I don't know if that was a plant as a plant.
What do you mean?
Did you plant it there on badness?
No, not out badness, as pure decoration for the visual element of,
I thought you were trying to tease me about it or something.
Of the podcast. What do you mean?
Just, you know, because I love plants.
You love gardening, don't you? Never met a man more into his agriculture.
Hydroponics only, but...
Once I was calling at my cousin's flat. This was when I was about 10 or 11 in the estate out the road. Rapped the door, didn't know what number it was, but I was like, I think it's this one, but it was on the wrong flight in the block of flats.
Right.
Rapped the door, all I heard was, 1 second, 1 second. I was like, not like him. You know, 1 second, 1 second. Guy came to the door and there was just like an ultraviolet green light coming from the side of him, and he looked like he was shitting himself. And about 10 years later, one day I was like, bet you that guy was growing weight.
just walking in the street. What the fuck? Yeah, no, God forgive you, that's a terrible thing to say.
It's funny when people it's so funny when people get busted, and like, you know, in America and all, you know, it's like, oh, they found like a drugs haul worth $200 million. Here, it's always some guy in the country, and they're like, drugs haul worth 68 quid.
3 plants and 17 roads shut down. You see the video? There was a guy recently, I was in England, I think, and there was a news reporter outside of what seemed to be had been a drug bust earlier in the day, and there's one guy just caught in the background coming with a plant. It must have been his ration, and he had to get it out and just away, caught on camera. Yeah, so no, your plant is hopefully it's It's going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works well in an audio podcast, I suppose, too.
So I haven't seen. Well, we've got the visual element of it too. Not a lot of people watch video.
Oh.
More people watch. More people watch the audio. I haven't seen you since February.
Yeah,
January.
February. It's been a long lockdown. Those 2 weeks have lasted a long time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're going to get into a lot of things.
It's the longest 2 weeks of my life. It feels like it anyway.
I text. So I'll mention it in the intro, but you do a podcast with Mickey Bartlett called Deck Chair and Yums. In my opinion, one of the best about, one of the few podcasts of friends that I would listen to, because there's something weird about listening, like not weird, but you know, you sort of chat to your friends, so you don't need to listen to their podcast. But that's one that I will regularly listen to, and so a lot of it, what you deal with is conspiracies and so much other stuff. But there's a
underlying theme running through the whole thing. There's a vein of theories.
And I text Mickey a couple of weeks ago and said, "Oh, see this vaccine? Now, I'm not that I'm on the wind up, but I know he'll give me a good bit of chat about this." I said, "Would you take I just sent him one sentence. I said, "Would you take the vaccine?" And Mickey replied, "A vaccine for something that doesn't exist?" Question mark.
Bartlett's been warned about that.
Yeah, it was so funny.
And that's the weird thing.
He's like, something that gives you no symptom. What he's like, what am I worried about catching? Something with no symptoms doesn't exist.
He did. There's something. What did he say? 99.94 recovery rate. So why would you take? But the weird thing is, people think that I'm the one when it comes to the vaccine thing, and I have no issue with it at all. I'll take it.
You take it?
Oh yeah, not a problem. Yeah, I have no issue with it at all.
I mean, I didn't think we'd get into this early, but even because I don't know whether I'm genuinely in the at-risk category, but with Crohn's and a compromised immune system, I think I should check out 100%. I should check that out. And see, But I never get the flu vaccine.
I've never had the flu vaccine, no. But I've had the, what do you call it, the booster when you were in secondary school.
BCG?
Yeah, I've had that. I had my kids are immunised, so I don't have an issue with vaccine.
What about the BCG you got in primary school, where someone in another class who'd already got it, because they give you a class by class, would come in to do a message to your classroom and go,
"Oh, and there was no fear bigger." We called it the booster. I don't know what you
booster. No.
No fear than the booster. Or worse was the guys who were a year older than you, who had it last year, punching you in that arm the whole day. Just constantly punching you.
They're getting on like Vietnam vets. Just
you don't know pain.
Yeah, I mean, I've never got the flu vaccine just because I'm like, I never get the flu, so I don't think I need it.
Once I've had the flu, and it was in November.
Oh, just there?
Yeah, I've never ever had. Actually, when it was over, because there was no coronavirus talked about that stage. When it was over, I said to my wife, "I'll never say again, oh, I had a dose of the flu last week," which I've said all my life.
Right.
What I had previously was a cold.
Yeah.
I had an actual flu in November, and it fucking floored me for just over 3 days. I had to cancel gigs and stuff. I could not move.
But they say, aren't people saying like, "Oh, well, flu doesn't exist anymore"? But what does that mean? Does that mean that anyone who thinks they have COVID and it's really the flu, they're just saying COVID?
I think that's what they're trying to say. I didn't see the memo that told us we had cured flu.
Right.
But a 95% drop in a year is technically cured. I don't know, by anybody's book. So I thought there should be at least street parties, but then you can't because of lockdown. So
yeah.
We could have a virtual party for the flu being killed.
I mean, I think whoever people are like obviously blaming the Chinese, which is pretty sly for COVID. But I mean, whoever owns Zoom needs to be investigated because they've made a few pound.
Follow the money. That is one of the biggest things, I suppose, in all this. The crazy thing is the massive transfer of wealth. So they said, there was a report came out that said 243 billion has went to the likes of Google, Apple, Amazon, things like that, and 200 billion has been lost by small businesses and stuff. So that's a massive change in money across the world, which is not a good thing.
Oh yeah, because Amazon, it is definitely re-emphasized to me without thinking that like you buy things on Amazon.
Yeah.
You don't go to your natural thing would be, I need something, I have to go to the shops.
Yeah, and what has happened is it's kind of the same thing as Google becoming a verb.
What do you mean, Google something?
Yeah, to Google something online.
Yeah,
I'll Google it.
I feel bad
which is terrible because as a corporation, you wouldn't say I'm going to go on Amazon it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't go out say to your mates, we're going to go out tonight and we're going to get fucking Weatherspooned.
No, you could. That would work.
Weatherspooned. So it's a weird one. I don't know.
I feel bad for the likes of Lycos.
Yeah.
You know, no one's Lycos on it.
Yeah.
No one's AOL on it.
Don't be asking Jeeves anything. I know.
Oh fuck, Jeeves definitely had COVID.
he's in the basement, quarantined.
Jeeves was so at risk. I mean, whenever I was in secondary school, Jeeves was very old.
Yes, yeah.
Because Jeeves asked Jeeves when he was an old guy. So now, God, I don't know.
I think he got a shield in there a few years back, and he just hasn't come out. Like,
how long does it take?
During the swine flu, I think it was back that
How
one.
long does it take, Jeeves, to find the answer to what you need?
DuckDuckGo is the way to go forward now for your search.
What's DuckDuckGo?
It's a search engine that doesn't track your searches or doesn't look at, and it doesn't. Google will prioritize things regarding to money.
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo won't do that. It'll give you a more realistic.
What about Bing?
Research.
Bing tried Dr. Bing
Bing
for a
tried
while.
that, but they keep sneaking in with their toolbars. Every so often you'll see it.
Yeah.
Where the fuck did Bing come out? Get that out. Even tries it the odd time on the phone.
Bing's like
Get out,
Bing's
Bing.
like that distant uncle that shows up at a family party. You're like, oh, for fuck's sake, do we not get
You were
rid of
cool
this
in the
guy?
90s. Fuck off now. You were cool when you used to buy me toys. Now you're not.
I mean, the money thing, people like follow the money and looking at all that kind of thing. Like, and we've probably talked about this a little bit before, a good while ago. I'm very ignorant in a way where if I know something like that's going on, I just don't look at it.
Right,
So when I get the vaccine, I won't look at them putting it in because I know I don't want to see that.
Okay.
So
is it a fear? Or is it just you don't want to see it?
I just don't want to see it because, like, I don't mind getting an injection. Get them all the time for the Crohn's thing. So, but I still prefer not to look at it.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would make me more uncomfortable. And I'm the same with, like, when you read about the rich getting richer, all that kind of thing. I don't want. I mean, that's why I don't watch the news.
Right. Just stay away from all that.
Yeah.
Just don't look at it.
It's like the thing with
What about masturbation?
What do you mean?
Just don't look at it.
No, just don't look. No, just don't look at it. Just don't look at
Just
it.
keep going.
No, don't look at the needle. But I don't know. It's just I've, probably where I hear most of but what about this is actually your podcast.
Okay.
I mean,
Don't
I
blame
don't know
us
if that's a scary thought for you that's where people are coming to get like an alternative take on things. But
yeah, because the sort of thing that we take on it is we're trying to what the fuck is going on.
And you were doing that way before it was cool. Like you especially. I'd never met like. Is conspiracy theorist a negative term? You call yourself a conspiracy theorist, or you say you're just someone who questions things?
Yeah, I think I've always done that even from school, but I've always questioned authority. So then when somebody tells you something, I'm like, well, I'd like to know myself.
Yeah.
Fuck, there's so much shit out there. There's so much,
so
much misinformation, so much intentional, unintentional. You've got every angle coming at, so it's very hard to even try and understand what is real and what's not. It's very.
Do you see the appeal of my attitude of like I just don't look at anything, or do you think that's irresponsible?
I'd be envious of people like that. My wife's like that.
No, but
my wife genuinely doesn't. If I was to ask my wife, "Are you a nationalist or unionist?" she couldn't tell you.
I don't know.
She doesn't know which one.
Don't
is
know the
which.
true definition of what they both are.
But you would know which side is which.
Oh yeah.
She had no clue. No,
yeah,
so I sometimes go, I'd love to be like that. I'd love to just not think of those things or not have those things in my sight at all. But
yeah, but then I think of I think of other things in that way, and I get genuinely yesterday, it got to about 2:00, and I was like, I don't know if I've had lunch. I couldn't work out if I had lunch or not, and it really started to upset and worry me because I was like, if I eat again, maybe I only ate an hour ago, so I'm going to overfill and
that's
die.
quite worrying at your age to have.
Yeah, no, I have a low IQ. Man, I have very low IQ.
There's low IQ and then there's early onset dementia. Yeah. I mean, you can't remember if you had lunch. That's not to do your IQ.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I wish I could forget a few fucking lunches. I'd be doing all right.
I want to talk loads about stand-up, but while we're on this, let me ask you about, about question things, about conspiracies, all that kind of thing. It has become not like a mainstream thing, but like it's something that so many more people have been turned on to since COVID. Two things I need to ask you. A pattern I notice, you don't do this, but like a lot of people I see on social media who are like getting into conspiracy stuff and that kind of thing. They do two things. And I want to ask you, do you think are they told to do, are they advised this is the best way to post things? Because the two things are the laughing emojis,
right,
and the popcorn emoji. And
right.
is it just they're seeing it elsewhere, or are there like, not like mentor, but are there like advice sites for like, listen?
There's no real, I know what you're trying to say, there's no real central location.
It looks like they're all typed by the same person, essentially.
Right, yes. Thankfully I'm not on social media since maybe March time.
Yeah.
And I now class social media the same as I class normal media, as in it can be controlled, your narrative can be spun to you. Very, very cautious of echo chambers, where you're only hearing one side that suits your narrative. So I constantly look at all sides to try and see. And even if something isn't popular, if you want to call it that, as long as there's reason behind it and logic, because let's be honest, if you look at what's happened this last 6 or 9 months, there's no reason or logic behind any of it. Most of it doesn't make sense, which makes you think, well, something else must be going on. So that's what we try and do. We're trying to constantly find out what the fuck is going on. Q is a thing that comes out, and Q is
I haven't heard about that from you.
So Q it's a
Belfast-based radio station.
Yeah, it's Q radio. So ultimately, you'll hear a lot of.
Do you think they got loads of people tuning in, being like, "Fuck, these boys are really committed to the cause"? How you doing?
Trying to find out the hidden coded meanings in between songs. It's a weird phenomenon because it started. And all I can think about now is the fucking competition time. How many millions have been, but you have to remember the figure, how many millions has been trafficked through Ellen DeGeneres.
Is Ellen DeGeneres wearing an ankle tag? Find out after the break. This is Ricky Martin.
Yeah, well, I mean, we think of Ellen, and I know obviously you're because you look a lot like Ellen. I'm thinking that just in case you get confused, but there does be like a lot of that stuff, a lot of Hollywood stuff was really weird, like the Tom Hanks things and stuff. And me and Mickey have always said there's a feel of that's been purposely almost put out there to try and spoil something or to try and ruin something. I don't know what it's trying to ruin, but we wouldn't be of the opinion that is true about Hanks and Ellen DeGeneres and
do you think
stuff.
There's more like sensational stuff that?
See, my problem is I first started looking into this years ago, round about 2010. Once we had bought a house and then woke up one morning and the house had lost 70 grand of value, and we're like, what the fuck just happened? So I went to go for the first time in my life. I should have figured it out before I went and got a mortgage. But I thought I'll go and figure out how money works, or how does it, like something you're never taught at school.
Yeah.
Like you could do economics, but you're not really doing that until you get to university. So you're not really taught anything.
You're doing Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah, which is great, because whenever you need to get a mortgage, it was the first thing the mortgage advisor asked me, do you know Pythagoras' theorem? I was like, yeah, and he was like, that's all right, we can give you a mortgage. So I went to learn about money and where it comes from and how it operates globally, and when I did, I was like, holy fuck, this is
but that's what I'm saying. I imagine if I looked into that and found horrifying answers, I'd just be sadder, or like...
It is scary, yeah. And then after more years, that was about 2010 onwards, up to about 2015, I started to realise, I don't know anything. Everything I've been taught has been wrong.
There's a lot of things I don't
know anything.
There's a lot of things I don't want to know. Like I think I accept like corruption everywhere.
Yeah, and
every
I think that's the key to all this. Is nobody has any belief that corruption can be stopped. It's just part and parcel of what we do, and it's just like the brown envelopes has become a cliche now to the point it's joking. Politicians will take a bribe, and it's not done as as blatant as that.
Yeah.
Like nobody's walking up to a politician going, "Here's we
Duffel bag
there's
on
wee
park
bag."
bench.
So it's all, and that's the thing about Q. So what Q did was,
So explain Q for you
so
did,
Q
and then
is an
I-
anonymous post that appeared. Now there's a lot of theories out there. If you go on to the media, for instance, they'll call it QAnon. There's no such thing as QAnon. So there's Q, and then there's anonymous people who follow it, which are anons in that sense. But so QAnon was put on as a name given to them by the mainstream media, where they go and attack it, and then they start firing out the weirdest stuff about Q. Now I shouldn't say Q. I should say the anons. Q keeps it very simple and talks an awful lot about global corruption and the power struggle and how the money works and where the money goes to, and then the sort of the level of nepotism you'll get between like a politician getting their son a job, and that's how the money's laundered. It's not like a bribe into so they broke that all down for the last 4 years or so, and the problem is when the mainstream media reporting it, all they talk about is the crazy stuff that some of the anons have come up
Well,
with.
that's all I see.
Yeah, all you see is the crazy mad stuff instead of looking at money.
Yeah.
Where does the money come from? Who controls it? The Federal Reserve is probably controls all our money. I was very stupid. I just thought,
In America.
yeah, with the world. So I because the whole world is based on the US dollar.
Right.
All the currencies are sort of backed by that, and are based around that. Now, obviously, you'll get people going, that's wrong. We get that all the time, but don't worry about that. You've got the. I always thought the federal or the American government, when they needed more money, they just printed more money.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how it worked, and that's not how it works. So when the American
No, because
government,
then inflation will go way up.
exactly,
Fucking yes.
but what happens is the American government get a lend of the money from the Federal Reserve
Yeah.
at a high interest rate, and then in order to pay the money back and to pay the interest, they get a lend of the Federal Reserve. So it's a cycle of debt that's owed. So do you
And
remember
they're trillions in debt.
trillions? Do you remember Tommy Tiernan used to do a bit about we owe billions to this. Who do we owe it to?
Yes.
The Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve and the World Bank and IMF, they're all the one sort of control, I suppose. So the whole argument at the moment is about Trump. Is Trump another one of those billionaires coming in to just completely erode any freedoms we had? Or is he actually the saviour, as some people are calling him? Is he somebody coming in to take down the corruption? We're very in between when it comes to the podcast. We don't know.
From the outside in,
if you were to follow what the mainstream media tell you about Trump, yeah, he's a racist buffoon who doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, but him personally, it just seemed to me like he became like a symbol of something, and it was like he didn't. It looked to me like he didn't know. Like you say, people call him savior, and people are like, he's liberating this, and he's doing this, and he's waging this secret war. And from his face, it just looked like he was going, I'm not, but if everyone is telling me I am, then that is unbelievable.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And the more he was like ignorant about it, and like, I don't know who those guys are. People were like, "Oh, Donald, you fucking sneaky bastard!" I don't know.
Doing your wee air cues and all, even though it's just him moving his hand.
They were like, "Oh, he phone tweeted, like a series of like letters."
Yeah.
People were like, "Figure all this out." He's like 87. He's like your dad. Of course, he's going to send the odd fucking pocket tweet.
Well, some of the key, the weird thing is about it is that this is why I've always said Q is probably one of the most sophisticated things I've ever seen, and not the madness that comes out of it, but the actual posts and the timestamps, the misspelling of things are all linked into a code, which is crazy. I still haven't figured it all out, but there are crazy coincidences, and that's the problem.
But you don't think you can find this in everything?
I don't know. I mean, one of the phrases going about is how many coincidences until it's mathematically impossible. Mm-hmm. And it's getting to that point. Sometimes you're going, how is that? That can't be a coincidence, the way some of the things are teaming up together. For instance, the election at the moment, so the mail-in voting, Q broke it down back in April and said, this is what's going to happen. This is how they're going to do it.
So sometimes I think, when you see, like, there was that video going around of a car pulling up, someone happened to be filming a mailbox or whatever, and these guys came and took all the votes away, and they were being asked questions.
That's right,
and
yeah.
the Trump supporters were like, look at these guys. Sometimes I look at that and I think, is there like a double bluff going on here?
Yeah,
Because
I always
I
think
looked
that
at that
too.
and I was like, there's no way that's, that
Yeah, they'd never be that blatant. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then I'm going, are the other ones then putting that out?
Yeah.
So you go, and like then I think
Now
about
you
that
know
that
how
much.
much of a mind fuck this all
Sometimes
is.
I like even just thinking about that. I've killed about 20 brain cells there. Like I'm a thick guy, but I'm cute. So
Yeah.
I have that thing of like I can't think about this too much, or I think I would just pull joints and break bone. Like my brain would freeze. I just get brain freeze a lot.
It does be. You should see Mickey's face some weeks. and Mickey with his.
You think if he just stopped thinking about this, it would straighten out?
the cartoon eyebrows that he has whenever he and they go way up. It's, usually get the fuck.
Yeah.
That's the usual phrase you hear from Mickey in the middle of it. But again, back to the coincidence thing. Sometimes you just can't, and sometimes they are coincidental, maybe. But when there's so many happen and so many things, so that's why I kind of not really worried about a vaccine. I would have been maybe last year, but I genuinely believe that the good guys are in charge, and I don't know how to describe that any other way than good guys. But I knew about the corruption before Trump came along, and that's why I have the advantage of most people. I had seen Obama and Clinton and Bush and all the rest for what they were before Trump came along. So people, for some, it's it's fascinating to watch. It really
Seems
is
the
fascinating
presidents, they will all have some sort of big flaws, and it's just like, whose flaws can you make peace with?
to watch. Yeah.
Like Joe Biden smelling people's hair, which can I be totally honest, I kind of like to smell people's hair too, but like not in as creepy a way as him.
No.
But sometimes if I were to hug you and like your hair is sitting, honestly, if this lockdown's giving us anything, your hair, your quiff always looks good, right? But right now, that is sitting perfectly. So if you and
to
I
my
were,
wife,
if
who's
you and
a
I would
hairdresser.
hug, which we can hopefully do next year, or right after the vaccine. If
Mm-hmm.
we get a vaccine, I'm going to drive Doma, right, and I'm going to hug you. Now, if I were to hug you and be close enough, I would smell your hair.
And I know what it would smell of.
What?
But anyway, and yeah.
Are you? Wait, sorry, were you fair in there? You wash your hair with calm? Oh right. No.
Why? where did it come? What? Why?
You mean plants? I thought that was so weird. I was like, what's the link?
No, we can't afford hair gel in Tyrone. We do have. We don't. We've moved away from cum.
How bad of a detective would I be?
This is grey hair, by the way. That's not been anything put into it. That's just.
Oh, look, there's a broken.
I love the way
The doors
I
are
love
locked.
the where
and
those tiptoes went to there, and you got.
the doors are locked, but there's a broken window. How did the killer get in? Me. I know. The ceiling. What? Let's search for cum.
Oh, fuck.
I'm always just searching for cum.
Good man. If I hadn't known, I would have brought you some, but you didn't let me know. And you haven't asked me about tea either yet. We've been sitting here on tea with me, and then
You're
you don't
right.
ask me about tea.
You're right. Do you know what? Sometimes I worry on this podcast. We're moving away from tea, and we've lost the essence of what brought us in. So let me ask you: are you a tea drinker, and what is the level of your tea drinking?
No, I don't drink tea. I do drink tea, but coffee first.
Right.
But if I'm having a tea, it's gotta be tar. Like it's gotta be strong tea.
As
I
in
love it.
with a certain type of bag, or just a lot of dips
I would leave it bag in.
a mug. Mm-hmm. That's weird. That's really a cup like this, takeaway cup like this. We got these from the Bay Tree next door. Support local. But in a mug, see, you're running a gauntlet there.
What's that?
Swallowing the tea bag.
No. I've had many a bag in my mouth, and I never swallow.
I know what you're talking about. Wait.
Did anybody ever die in your fucking podcast where I'm joking?
Just me want to do solo ones mostly.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, I think we drank tea together, probably backstage at the show. I always make tea.
You've actually got me onto the you were the first one to make me try almond milk.
Almond milk, yeah, it's good.
And in tea.
Paddy
No difference?
So I drink almond milk because basically I'm lactose intolerant because of my health. Paddy McDonald sent me a WhatsApp in the middle of like the first lockdown, and it was a graph about real milk and milk substitutes like almond. And the downsides of almond milk. So it was like, there can be a lot of sugars in these, in the way it's kind of processed. And he's like, something to think about, mate. And I had to reply and be like, yes, but if I drink the normal one, the main downside would be I would shit myself. So I'm okay with a little bit more sugar.
You could do a bit more sugar, let's be honest.
Yeah, probably.
Because I'm on a diet at the moment and it's fucking killing me.
What do you doing on it?
My wife joined Slimming World, so then I just copy her.
You're like somebody who would follow a walking tour around the city.
Aye, just
hanging
about
back
100
a wee
metres
bit.
behind, just I'm not really part of it.
How raging would the tour guide be? Fuck off. And you're asking questions?
Megaphone from 100 metres away.
So what are you doing? Just watching, just a general, like watching the comedies?
Yeah, trying to cut down the fucking shit and walking. Doing a bit of walking and stuff, but I had 2 stone on over lockdown. So I have to...
Everybody, like...
Yeah, but I have to lose 2 stone to go back to being a fat fucker.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's not good. Everybody's... most people have the ability to put on a wee bit extra weight, and they could maybe do...
You eat at night, like, right? That's your your thing?
Yeah, vampire just.
Do you think, can you get that under control?
I just go to bed.
All right.
I was in bed 7:30 last night.
Did you never know going to bed was an option?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could switch off the switch. I was like, that's fucking genius. I'm 40 next year, and it took me till then.
If you want to know how out of control my life is and how much of a party boy I am, last night, not only did I at 9:20 very dramatically say, I need to go to bed, I was watching The Crown when it happened. I was like, I need to go to bed. Do you want to talk about that?
No. I
The
don't
Royals?
watch it. My wife watches it.
Yeah. You seen any of it?
No.
Fucking good show.
So she's telling me, she's trying to get me into it, but
It's
no.
a good show. Like
I know the
anything
cast.
else,
I know the cast is very
a
good.
good show.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Olivia Colman's in it, isn't it? And
Not
John,
in the series I'm going from the start, so it's Claire Foy and Matt Smith.
right. And John Lithgow appears in it later on.
He's in the whole thing.
Oh, is he in the whole thing?
Ben Churchill.
Okay, yeah. Ben Churchill, yeah.
10 out of 10. He's brilliant. Like.
He's a class actor, yeah. But no, I haven't got onto it yet. I was rewatching The West Wing. I was in the middle of...
I've never seen The West Wing. Worth getting into?
Yeah, really, really good. One of the best, probably some of the best writing, because it's Aaron Sorkin. So
Yeah.
first 4 seasons are unreal. Like, yeah. So I don't know how many times I've rewatched it. You like it. You kind of hope for a President Bartlett, not Mickey, but
Oh no, Mickey and Kieran run together. The Bartlett boys taking care of the states.
President, Vice President. Fuck.
Yeah. So with the diet thing and the weight thing, here's the thing I always think about. Do you ever worry that like if you drastically changed, and like for better or worse, it would affect your stand-up?
Yeah. I'd be worried that being too skinny would make you not funny anymore.
Well, do you think it's like a joke?
For somebody for me who I kind of always, I don't joke about weight on stage, but I make sure I get the reference in first.
You've 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah, and I'll get it in, but I do have that fear going, because I think I get away with more. I don't know what that is. I think I get away with more risky material, I suppose, in that way, for being the jolly fat guy. But I don't.
You don't do that kind of material. It's not based on the way you look. Your material's not.
Yeah,
based
I'll
on
try not to, but I would make a reference to it. Just, I suppose it's a nervous thing to get there before the audience does.
Yeah,
and that's they've never do it, but it's just my head. That's what
when I lost, for medical reasons, when I lost loads of weight with the Crohn's, I felt really, really weird on stage. Like I was thinking, if anyone seen me do stand up before and they saw me when I went down to like 8.5 stone, I was just a skeleton. Like I was
were a skeleton.
Yeah, I was thinking they were looking at me being like, you couldn't concentrate in the stand up.
Yeah, I would have the fear that if I'd touch wood, if I lost a load of weight, that people would go, oh, he looks so different. If they've seen me before. If they haven't seen me before, that's just the first time they'll see me. But if they had seen me before, that's all they could think about.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to think of it. They're going, fucking hell. That's the dream, anyway. That's what I'm hoping for.
I think people think you just roll out and do stand up.
Literally just roll me out on the floor.
You roll out, then roll out and go to stand up. But like small things, like I will change outfit 4 times before I go out to do a gig sometimes, and it's not like it's not me going, I want to look good here. I'm thinking about like, are they going to think my trainers are weird here?
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know. I think
do, because you have to. Yeah, if you're genuinely taking comedy serious, you have to know that you are judged from the moment you step out on stage.
I think I think it's taken me a load of years to figure out what my on stage outfit is.
I remember Dan Sloss saying to me about that he changes every year. So he'll change something. He'll change his outfit. He'll change his hairstyle. He'll change so that each one goes with a different phase of him. It's still him, but he'll take a different attempt to it. And it might be small changes, but he said for each tour or each special, he would have something different.
He gave me brilliant. I supported him. So Daniel Sloss is a Scottish comedian who, it's weird because it's like of everything he's done, like fuck, like HBO specials, Netflix, but like you would still locally have to explain.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he's a Scottish,
it's a weird, yeah,
Scottish comedian, so intelligent, brilliant stand up, and I remember supporting it. I think he's young, like he's like a year younger than me at the same age, and I supported him at Black Box when we were both like very early 20s, just out of our teens, and I went on first. He introduced me, and I used to just try and get to the mic as quick as possible and start like a machine gun. And he, after the gig, he was like, "Listen, I hope you don't think it's disrespectful for me to offer you a bit of advice." I was like, "Please do." He said, "Take your time." He's like, "Grab the mic and get your bearings, and then start." And it helped me massively.
That I think, I'm not going to quote because he probably says wrong, but I think he got that from Tom Stade, who also said the same thing to myself. Who was like, when you get on stage,
make them at ease.
Grab the mic, take the mic stand, take it with you to the back of the stage, out of your way, and then come and do your thing, because that is the time to know this is your stage.
Yeah.
I'd be too afraid. I'd be thinking halfway across, going, "Hello, how you doing?"
Yeah.
Say something. But that's confidence, I suppose. It comes with time, doesn't it?
I think I peaked too soon with like more of a mature look whenever we did Waterfront last time, and I wore a black shirt tucked in to actually these jeans and some very nice black smart shoes. I think I looked like, I had a weird man-child look.
You sort of have, I don't know, there's something about the Waterfront especially. I mean, it's 2,000 people, so you sort of have to look like...
But then
for comedy, I don't know.
But then, with hindsight, and that was one of my favourite gigs ever. With hindsight, I was like, I probably would have felt more comfortable wearing the stuff I'd normally wear. But you can slightly, say I go and do a spot at Pugs, well, I can wear trainers, jeans and a hoodie.
Yeah.
And it's not me being disrespectful to crowds. That's me, especially if I'm trying new material, physically being as comfortable in
because
track clothes.
You need to try and get rid of as many distractions away from the material.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying new stuff, you don't need anything else, so you just want to focus on that. So then, your clothes don't become important to you at all. But
what did you wear for your first gig? Do you remember?
I wore a t-shirt. Just a t-shirt. It was like a
t-shirt jeans.
T-shirt and jeans. It was like a Jim Morrison t-shirt. The only reason I know that is because the photographs are there. Because it was the first time it was in Daly's, and Daly's had a photographer at all times there.
Can't remember what I wore from my first gig. Jumper, shirt, jeans and trainers.
Nice. You wouldn't do that again.
No.
Jumper's too warm, isn't it? Now under lights.
Yeah, you wouldn't wear a jumper.
But that again comes from experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just time and then spending time on it.
We talked about Daniel Sloss. You had him over, and every comedian who was good at the time to Daly's Comedy Club.
Yeah.
In Oma, which I remember you used to say to people,
which we couldn't sell out
when he played.
Yeah.
See, that is, I think, a testament to local audiences where they always want to support their own.
Yeah, very, very support. I think I'm going to say our generation, you want to call it that?
Yeah.
But that group of ourselves, that the support from local people is unbelievable. And like we just said, Sloss has got Netflix. He's done he had done Conan O'Brien already, but him he come to Daly's. But no, they wanted Shane Todd, Paddy McDonald. You know what I mean? They wanted locals, the big guys they knew.
But I remember when you would say to people, "Oh, I'm going up to Oma this weekend to do stand up," they'd almost like not feel bad for you, but they'd be like,
sympathy.
"I'm sure you have to do. I'm sure you have to do those kind of ones." And you'd be like, you'd spend 10 minutes passionately being like, "You should drive up to see this place."
Yeah, it got that was our comedy club in Oma, so it kind of got
Is it in a Granda bar, like an old Granda bar?
Yeah, an old bar upstairs, and it just kind of Terry Keys and Chris Bowes started it, and Terry was obviously Terry, so Terry was the MC, and it kind of was. It's the same problem everybody had back at that time in a small town, was trying to introduce comedy to a town that didn't have comedy.
Yeah.
So trying to introduce people to come along to a pub and not talk was completely alien to them. They'd never done it before.
The challenge was changing their expectations of what a comedy night was.
Yes, yeah.
Because they would have thought it was one person.
Absolutely, yeah. So they didn't know.
an hour and a half.
They didn't understand. So Terry was MC, and Terry was a great MC.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like some of his off the cuff stuff was amazing, and that's I remember watching one comedian. I went in to watch because they weren't doing well. They were struggling to start, and I remember going in the August of 2010 and saying to I'm 10 years this year, actually, saying to me and my brother went to watch it, and there was a comedian on, local comedian. And I watched. You're too good at guess who. So
does this person have glasses?
So this person doesn't do it anymore. So that's a good. Thank fuck. He was on stage and he was telling jokes that were properly 20 years old, like jokes that I would have remembered in primary school on the playground. No, I'm not telling you. And I'll never forget. I remember turning to my brother and going, I may not be the best, but I know I could do better than that.
But the idea must have had been in your head.
It had been in my head for a while. I was going to go for Show Me the Funny or Find Me the Funny.
Yeah.
And then I missed the deadline of closing date by a day. Didn't know Terry Keys was going on it at all.
Oh,
I had no idea. I just seen the poster in the place I worked. And the poster was very... it was like, do your friends think you're funny? Are you good at telling stories? And that's all I had been doing for a while. I would have done that, just messing about. And... so yeah, I missed that, and I'm glad I missed that because then it would have been two Keyses and it would have been because he's my cousin and stuff. So, so this was a better one to go then to Daly's, and I said to Chris, can you give me a slot? And he said, yeah, I'll give you 7 minutes. So what I did, because of the work I work in community work, so I fucking got everybody I know to come along to support. Where most people try not to maybe perform.
Yeah.
I was like, no, fill the place, just for like a comfort blanket, and it was a competition. And I'm trying to think who emceed it. I think it was Darren Matthews, or else Darren Matthews was in the competition maybe.
Right.
And
who else was in?
Niamh Maron was on, and
in the
competition. In the competition, yeah. And I can't remember who else was on. There was a lineup of about 6 or 7. I think maybe Darren Matthews was one thing. So I won it, yeah, but it was an audience vote. So I had filled the place full. I did do well, and the set went well. But Niamh Maron fucking tore the roof of the place, and to the point even a few of my mates come up afterwards because there was prize money. I never forget, there was £80 prize money.
Right.
And then my mates come up going, "You need to fucking half that with her." I was like, "No,
fuck that."
Sorry, Niamh, I kept the fucking £80. Yeah. But yeah, she definitely. Well, then she came back the following month and headlined, and she stormed it. But that was my first gig. So, and the problem with that is your first gig. It's a competition. You win. It's in Daly's in a room full of people and you think, oh fuck, I am on it. Yeah. And then you get to Muff in County Donegal for a gig.
I was going to say, like,
you're just thinking of coming in, aren't you? And then you do a gig where it's pure death. Yeah. And you're going, oh, okay, this is harder than.
That's what it is. This is
harder
really
than I thought it was going to be. So a death and Muff will definitely bring
worse places to die.
There are worse places to die, but Mary Deeney's Muff, by the way. You ever been to Mary Deeney's?
No.
So yeah, it was a funeral party that we didn't know.
You were upstairs?
They were upstairs.
Yeah.
Sean Haggerty was on. Terry Keys, myself, Terry McHugh, the creme de la creme, and 2 guys who had never done stand-up before. That was brilliant.
People would always say, always in stand-up nights back then, somebody would, the organizer would go, and they'd never organised anything before, they would go, listen, there's a fellow on hasn't done any gigs, and instead of going, he's doing 5 minutes, they would go, we'll throw him on for 30.
This guy did 27 minutes.
And 18 of it was from Eddie Murphy Raw.
To the point he got 8 minutes in, he decided to bring up guests to interview.
I mean, it's very, very confident for your first time at doing stand-up. Or have you run out of stuff?
And so it was I had actually, I'll never forget. I swear to God, till the day I die, I'll never forget that gig because it was the most weirdest gig in general. my uncle and my two younger brothers came along and they were in the audience, and like at one point my uncle called me over and went, "Is this a fucking hidden camera show?
Right.
Like, is this a prank?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I'm going to look for cameras here because something's not fucking right about this place."
Yeah.
And then we found out then the party, I think I've told this before, but the party up above that was, we were told when we went in, was a Valentine's 2-for-1 thing. So they were eating. Terry Keys per guy. The
Was it open? Could they see?
Open, yeah. They were sitting and they were talking, and you know yourself, a distraction. So
Yeah,
Terry
yeah.
Keys, with MC, did a great job. Fair play to him. He corralled them down. Come on down after they finished eating. Right, come on down.
Come on down, you young lovers.
Get you down here, all you Valentine's couples, and they scattered themselves among the audience. And at that stage, I wasn't aware of the mechanics of that and how important it was. I was happy enough to go up, and them being up there didn't matter. But when they came down to the show, I thought, oh, okay, we have a show now.
Yeah.
And Terry, just
You're all wearing the same
before
suit.
he was going to announce me on, was going around the thing, and I'm not joking, he said the following sentence to the woman, and like, "Jesus, love, what's wrong with you? Who died?" Right? She said, "My father." And every comedian clicked what it was and looked at the barman who had told us it was a Valentine's night. I went, "What the fuck?" And he went, "Oh, I didn't want to tell you what it was in case I scared you." I was like, "What fucking, it's a funeral party." Like, you just put a stand-up gig with a funeral party. And then poor Terry corrals him down to join the rest of the group. Yeah, so that was. So
there was more deaths that night, basically.
There was a lot more dead people that days. So we that was a big come down after the sort of the elation of winning the competition. So then it became a long slog, as you'll know. Like, we all. I mean, when I started in 2010, you were a couple of years into it already. So you really had the Empire, if even that. You know,
It was the only thing regularly going in Belfast.
Yeah, so everything going weekly with no dailies. There was no, Derry had something maybe, but nothing set in stone.
Masons.
And so it started to grow from there. We ended up doing, I had gigs in Ards and Bangor and like really terrible gigs.
Well, and
really,
everywhere.
really terrible.
Every town and village tried to start a club.
Yeah, and failed miserably.
But the problem was what they would do is, and probably why dailies worked, one of the reasons, what they would do is say Newton Ards with somebody go, "I'm going to start a comedy club," and the bar loved the idea of it because every bar owner wants to have a comedy night in their bar. It's cool, like, you know. So what they would do is, "How much do you need for the first one?" "I need £250. Boom, there's 250 quid, and they would promo it, and they would get the bar manager would get his mates down, and it was, the first one was always packed, and it was usually good. And then the second month, what they would do is they go, "Well, the comedy night works now, so we don't need to promo it as hard. We don't need to tell people because it's always full." And then the second one wouldn't really have anyone, and you never wanted to do the third one. Because nobody was at it, and the bar would stop it at that point instead of going, "We need to build this."
Yeah, and that's
Daly's actually built, and
yeah. Well, actually, what happened was the people that I brought with me to that competition night, about 50 to 60% of them became regulars.
Yeah.
And came every month.
Yeah.
Because again, that's something that small towns have to deal with, is that people don't know what it is.
it's curiosity. They come.
Yeah, so you have to get them in, and once you get them in for the first time, and it sort of breaks the ice, they go, "Oh, okay." And then we were a Friday night too, which in Oma, like most small towns, Friday night was usually like the underage drinkers route. There was nobody really, there's nothing really on the Friday night. So this was a weird thing where people realised I could come and have like 2 beers, feel like I've had a night out, but not waking up on a Saturday absolutely dying.
And some of the names, like, who did you have?
Yeah, well, that was a problem too. It became a problem for us locally. So it started off with Ardlo Hanlon. So whenever he came along, and obviously it sold out in like minutes. And then the following month with Conor Murphy. So you had that level.
The
set
bar,
up, and then two things happened. Number one, the regulars thought that was going to be the level all the time.
Yep.
And in fairness, we did keep a decent enough level at that stage. But the other part was, because those two gigs, I can't remember who the third gig was, it was a big name as well. But because the three of them sold out in a row, the whole town was like, you can never get a ticket for that comedy club. It's always sold out.
Yep.
So then by the fourth month, nobody was there.
Yeah.
Even the bar owners, like, had met me on a Monday after a Friday night. It was like, me and the wife were driving past, but thought, fuck, sure, we've no tickets to get in. I was like, but you own the bar. That was the level. So I thought, if you're thinking that you own the place, well, then what's Joe Soap thinking? So that was to be a victim of your own success in that sense. But we got around that, and then, as I say, then the things with what you were doing and what Colin was doing started to really kick off.
Yeah.
And it just was a perfect storm, really, to be honest with you. It just all sort of kicked in. And then we got stayed over in Sloss and Tony Law, and something really. And
it's one that, like, if I was ever gigging in London or Scotland or wherever, that's when people heard your accent and knew you're from Northern Ireland. What about that Oma place, that Daly's club? Or they would say, what's that comedy club? And I would know what they were talking about.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that happened, because the other thing that happened was when Ardal O'Hanlon came. But this stage, Terry had decided to move to Belfast. And I had done Dailies maybe 4 times on stage. And then Chris and Terry came to me and said, listen, would you mind taking over as resident MC? Because I was like, fucking happy days. I had to write new material every month, which was a killer, but it also kept me prolific and kept me sort of going. Yeah. But when Ardal O'Hanlon announced, my granny, being such a fan, had heard about him come along, and she was like, oh, I'll make sausage rolls. So she made sausage rolls, and her sausage rolls were fucking famous. And I jokingly said to her, I was like, fuck, if you do it for Ardal, I mean, we'll call Murphy next month, so you're going to have to make them. So then it became a monthly thing. And then the sausage rolls became as famous as the club.
That was always a big incentive as to why you'd go down. You'd be like, can I get 100 quid? You boys would be like, we'll have 20 because it's a last minute spot. I'll take it because I knew I was coming down.
Yeah. Get us, as I say, he was caught many times with pockets full leaving the place. So that became a big thing as well, which was very strange, but it was also because I had done 2 years on the road, if you want to call it that, at shitty gigs.
Yeah.
Turning up to a pub, not even being offered a water or a cup of tea or something, because you've driven all the way, and like this idea that stand-up's this rock and roll, Matt.
All you want is
almond milk. You know what I mean? We're drinking tea with almond milk.
You've done all my big shows, and what's the rider is, can we get a few waters, some almond milk, and then maybe if it's a big show, I'll be like, can you get some beers for some of the guys if they want some?
But then then they're not drank because we're all driving.
Exactly.
It's one of those scenarios. So
I got excommunicated from Daly's for about a year in the early days,
right?
Because I did a charity show in Oma, but like for out towards Corchin. Is there like a night?
I've heard about that. I wasn't at that gig, but I heard about that gig.
It was for Teenage Cancer Trust, maybe, I want to say.
Was there not something like loads of activities happening around the gig as well, or something? No, I've heard a few stories about this.
Me and Sean Hegarty with the stand-ups booked.
Right. Okay.
So we drove down, no money for it, and like they were billing it as a comedy night, but it was a fundraiser thing. And after us, there was a guy getting either his legs or his back waxed. He was the next act on the bill. Me and Sean went
and
up.
He killed.
Sean did. We were supposed to do 15 minutes or so,
right?
Or maybe even more. We both did about 3 minutes. It was like a 2-floor nightclub, so nobody was listening. It was like a fair. People were looking at different stuff, and I think me or Sean was like, "Listen, just want the guy getting the wax," and everyone's like, "Yo!" So we just commentated on the guy getting it waxed and interviewed him during it. And me and Sean after it were like, we could be the Anton Deck of waxing here. But then
a niche in the market.
But then next time I went to do dailies, the response was like, nah, not this month. And then I figured it out, because I guess in a small town, of course you're paranoid about, and there have been loads of instances about, and I've sometimes been asked, would you come and do my bar in Oma? We've talked about that.
Yeah,
I think they were paranoid about it, and then it took a long time for me to figure out why.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I think, as we know now, in 2020 especially, well, maybe not 2020, but 2019, comedy was the new thing where everybody wanted to be doing one, and so we were getting approached by other venues in the same town, and it's just... It's difficult. It's not.
Or they would go to acts and go.
Or go directly to acts and say, "Can you come and bypass the comedy club?" And you're thinking there is a comedy club, and it's there. But the one thing that Daly's has that nobody else has is the square room, low ceiling, and you cannot, as a performer on stage, you cannot put a price on that low ceiling square room where everybody's facing the wonder. Bogan's is a great bar, and I love Andy's owner and stuff, but an L-shaped audience is just difficult for a comedian.
Yeah.
Bands are no problem, but a comedian needing to do two facial expressions or two, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just not, it's not working. But so that's what they had was magical. But you know, from doing it, when it was at its peak, like, it was electric in there. There was times where it was just, I know how hard it was to get me to talk Kevin McAleer into come along for the first time. I'd met him in the street, and I talked to him. I said about the comedy club. You know, Kevin was like, "Oh,
no.
these boys are a bit too young for my stuff." And I think what he was thinking of, it was going to be that gig you were talking about, the back waxing thing and stuff. Yeah,
strobes.
So I had to really sort of plead with him and go, "No, I promise you, it's like, it's an actual comedy audience. They want to be there for it. Please come along." And he came and did 20 minutes and just absolutely destroyed the place.
Yeah.
And then came to me afterwards and just said, he goes, "You have something really special there." He said, "I haven't felt that in a long time."
Yeah.
So I was so glad, because I was nervous, you know, because it's just, there is a younger crowd, and it's because it's, you know, it's Kevin. But that was pre Derry Girls.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, after Derry Girls, it's actually weird. I met him not that long ago in a hotel locally. And
for a massage?
Yeah, we went in, two of us, in the spa, and just having a cup of tea in the foyer, and people walking past, and you could see, like, people looking at him and sort of staring at him, and like one girl was sneakily taking a photograph of him as he went past. And I said, "Kevin, do you notice much of that these days?" "There's been a bit of an increase now." I said, "You know what that's about? Like, you know, obviously Derry Girls." "Yes, I know. I haven't watched it, but I know." I said, "Right." I said, "But you know about, like, Uncle Colum's clips are going around Facebook by themselves." The Sun said something to me about that.
Yeah. He just has no relationship with the modern world.
Absolutely
and it's
none.
brilliant.
If you want to meet him for a coffee, you have to send a pigeon, you know?
Yeah, like I saw him walking around Noma. Like, he's a comedy hero of mine and was for a gig with him from a long time before. Kevin McAleer, if anyone doesn't know, from Oma.
Just in the outskirts, yeah. He's a couple of miles outside, yeah.
And I mean, in the early 90s would have been, especially on Irish TV, like doing stuff, the Night Owls doing stuff on RTE.
Nighthawks and everything.
Nighthawks,
yeah.
Nighthawks.
RTE, yeah. And then he had, he just had this sort of...
His videos, he had videos.
Yeah, but he was
specials.
also, like, seen as the alternative.
Yeah, he was genuine alternative comedy, where there's a lot of people who say alternative comedy and it's just because it's just not funny.
Yeah.
But he was sheer alternative comedy and it was hilarious. And I saw him walking around Noma one day, and I remember, like, clocked him. I was like, "Is that him?" And then I had nowhere to be, or I was killing time, so I was like, "I wonder where he's going." And I was like, "Hold on," I walk down the street and see what he's up to. And then I was like, I've been following him for about 10 minutes, and I met him maybe at Daly's or at something, and I was like, "Kevin, I gotta make a confession." I was like, "I followed you before around the streets." And then he was on Radio Ulster about 3 years later, not on my show, on somebody else's show, and they were asking him about modern comedy and stuff, and he said, "Yes, there's the fella Todd," he said, "he follows me about." And it's just the way he said it. I guarantee you people listening were like, "What the fuck is Shane Todd doing?"
He's so droll.
But we did the Galway comedy. Mike, what do we like for time?
54 minutes.
54. We did the Galway Comedy Festival, and there was like a Nordy invasion night, which for some reason, see the term Nordy, I hate it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think anyone really uses it, do they?
Down south they would, yeah.
About Northern Irish people, but
yeah, the Nordies.
It's not a word I enjoy the sound of. Not like obviously it'd be mental if I was offended by it, because it is, you know. But I just mean when it's
as
down,
a term,
Nordy, I don't like
Nordy,
it.
Yeah. And I think it's because the southern accent too is the Nordy. You know, the D part of it is the Nordy.
It's not a nice word, but there was like a Nordy night, and it was me, Mickey, Colin, and Kevin McAleer and Paul Curry.
Oh, fuck.
Young crowd. It was a Sunday night. I didn't have a good festival. I feel like I didn't do well at any of the shows really, and that was the best night because everybody kind of did well. I had my best set of the thing, and it was just before Kevin McAleer went on, and there was like 200 people in the tent, and the only person I was watching to see if he was laughing was Kevin McAleer.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's not going to be like Def Comedy Jam audience member, falling in the aisles, but like if you notice the odd, like, you know, the side of his mouth is like slightly moving at one point in 20 minutes, you're like, that's all I need.
It moves about 3 millimeters.
That's all I need.
That's when you know it's good. Yeah, he sent me an email after the first time he'd watched me actually, and said, I can't remember. So I used it as a quote in my poster, going, "Very personable. You could take that the whole way," sort of thing. I was like, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah.
You know, because to me, obviously I'm a bit older than you, but growing up it was always American comedy for us.
Yeah.
British comedy wasn't really
Same
a
for me.
thing. Lenny Henry maybe certainly, but the rest was all Eddie Murphy and maybe Bill Hicks and Pryor and stuff. So then for the very first time, I'll never forget, I stole the tape off my uncle of hearing like an audience absolutely creasing themselves to somebody with my accent.
Yeah.
I was like, this is because I wasn't listening to Kilty maybe a little bit, but that's a bit ahead of it. And I was like, but that's a Tyrone accent. I was like, that is fucking unreal. So never knew what it looked like.
Yeah.
Just knew the voice.
Right.
Because that's how old I am. It was on tape. So I never got to see him until way later. And when I just, you know, when you meet somebody, you're like, that is exactly what I thought you looked like.
Yeah, always the hands behind the back. Yeah. 2 hands behind the back.
Sort of
fleece
forward and back. Just,
yes,
yeah.
fleece on.
Yeah,
and like
absolutely.
totally happy to like be in silence.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because who was it I saw backstage at the festival? It was like him and a couple of like comedians of like his age. And I, you know, before you got a bit of nervous energy, you want to like chat to people a bit and, well, how have your other shows been going and all this? And they were just kind of all like happy to just enjoy the, you know, little nod at each other every now and again.
Colin Murphy told me, I went out with him last year, and Murphy said about being stuck in a green room with Kevin McAleer and Michael Redmond.
Father Stone.
The two of them just, all right.
Kevin,
One word the way through, that was it. But yeah, he's fantastic and is such a brain.
Yeah.
And his wordplay, the last show I watched him, I was like, oh, that is just, there's not a syllable.
Well, so well written.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then that humility comes with him as well, where he just doesn't, he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care.
I've seen him go on at the, I saw him going at the Empire. It's one of the first times I saw him live, and they just weren't listening. Mm. And he just, you know, it was like a very rowdy, like a bear pit night. Like they wanted more unsubtle comedy, let's just say. He goes up, starts talking. You know, he's got white hair. He's a fairly small man. He's up on stage, hands behind the back, taking 30 seconds between sentences. And they were chatting away. Mm-hmm. And after about a minute or two, the chatting kind of went away a wee bit. And he just kept talking. You know, if we went on, we'd be shouting a bit, trying to get their attention.
With him, yeah.
He went even quieter. He went more into his shell. And he would just go, they're watching me now. They're watching me. They're always watching me. And he would just look around at, you know, look around the stage. And eventually, after about 10 minutes, they were loving it.
That's it, yeah.
He killed.
And he gets him. And I watched him in Daly's one. He came and did a couple of times out the first night. And he's the only act I've ever seen that could, the only word I can use, footer with a microphone stand.
Yeah.
For almost a minute.
Yes, yeah.
Not say a word.
Yeah.
And have them in stitches.
Yeah.
Just from a wee touch.
Yeah,
and a wee look and nod, eyebrows and all. I mean, everything about it is just timed to
I must get him
perfection.
on the podcast. I think he'd be up for it.
It'd be class.
So let me, to finish up, so hard to predict, be like, oh, what shows you want to do and all, and what's happening, but like, has this period of inactivity for everyone given you like any sort of specific ambition to like do a certain thing, or are you like, you know what, now I've thought about actually want to do this or that?
The good thing about it all is I've got an hour show on Q.
Excellent.
Just the whole entire journey and all the madness and all the crazy shit. Like, I have read some crazy shit this last 9 months. So to put that into a show,
you should do that in like a dark basement venue with a small crowd.
Yeah, and then just kill them all then.
Yeah.
In the comedy way.
This is a pact you did not know about.
I think the biggest shock for me has been the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I'd been doing a podcast, the best podcast, to our 200 listeners. Me and my mate Ronnie had been doing that, and it's basically, you know, best your favorite TV show or film or whatever, and we sort of do a review. So it's not a comedy one. Yeah. And then somewhere along the line, I think it was January time, Bartlett was just chatting to me one day, and he was like, "Here, do you fancy doing a podcast?" And I was like, "The equipment's in Oma. If you're willing to travel to Oma all the time, fucking sure, no problem."
Yeah.
And he does. He comes down every time, and then it went from there. So I know, me personally, I've increased like people that know me because of the of the podcast. So hopefully now I'll be able to do like a show of my own sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I was more than happy with where things were going, because it just on Waterfront Hall with you. Like, sang at Waterfront Hall, no
yeah,
less.
Yeah,
no
we
less.
did.
Did the Waterfront Hall with you, and then had went out with Murphy after that. And do you know when you obviously at some point must have had that feeling where you're thinking, right, things are moving in the way they should be moving.
Yeah.
You can feel a bit of momentum, and then bang, it just stops. The last 2 shows of Murphy's tour wasn't done, lockdown, and so the podcast then became a sort of a filler with our quizzes, and
it's been a great way to be productive in some way, and feel like you are having that connection with
do you know what
audience.
It feels fucking therapy.
Yeah, 100%.
Swear to God, it's 100%. Like when you're sitting, especially when you're with Bartlett. I mean, he's. You know what he's like. I mean, just pull the string, let him go.
Yeah,
you know, and you just watch and absorb, and so that's been class as well, because then you end up feeling like an audience member at times, because you're coming out sore from laughing. You know, so it has turned out to be pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
So, Deck Chair and Yum, what day of the week come in?
Normally goes out to Tuesday. Yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah, it's class. I really enjoy it. And Mickey was supposed to get a camera from me. And
yes, we've talked about it.
I should have brought it today.
The Shed of Truth is getting converted.
Right.
Into the Studio of Truth.
So I should have brought that camera. You can have that camera.
We'll get that, yeah. But I think
it's not
if there was ever a podcast that shouldn't be on video.
Yeah.
I've said this for a long time. I keep putting it off, going, Mikey, we're not very photogenic. You know, sorry for yourself. You know what I mean? You know, you obviously you look like you do. But
sounds like there's an insult in there somewhere. You know?
But us two swamp monkeys coming out of fucking...
I look like a haunted Victorian child.
But a sweet one.
Yeah. Well, I sweeten the outside, but like that was a question I was asked in a recent podcast. Would be like, if I was a character in The Crown, who would I be? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'd be like a distant relative who's in with he's royal kind of by blood, but I think I would have gone by the name of Julian, and I'd be like a very evil big child. You know, and
are you not officially part of the royal family now?
Kind of.
Sort of are.
And that's why when I mentioned The Crown and you looked like you had something to say, I was going to be, this episode's never getting released.
The family won't allow it.
Do you know what? I remember, so the first thing, I did 2 things. One was when Harry and Meghan came over, and they were coming to the Crown Bar and they wanted to meet people from the arts.
I love your bit about that,
about how you react to when certain people ask you?
About the Crown Bar, about being there, and...
Oh, but the way I was introduced.
They just assumed that you were just a drinker.
It was the woman who was the official liaison, the Irish liaison between the royal family and the people or whatever. And she's old, right? And she was supposed to introduce, she asked everyone, "What's your name and what do you do?" Shane Todd, stand-up comedian, blah blah. And then when it came to it, she just fucking got lost in the joy of it all. And no, she didn't even say it.
Oh, really?
She was these are some locals of this bar. And then my joke was that we just looked like we were always there, and I was like, these people just think I'm a young alcoholic. But yeah, so we did that and we had a chat, and I purely went to that because 2 of my mates were doing it, and I was like, oh, this is material. Yeah. This is 100% material. And then the next time they asked, there was like, now William and Kate are coming over. Would you do? And I was like, oh, I don't want to do the same thing again. They were like, well, would you do stand up at this event? And I was like, yes, 100%. Did it. And then a friend of ours said to me not that long ago, he goes, some people in the West aren't too happy with you. And I was like, how?
I think I was there in that conversation.
Yeah, I was like, there must have nothing to do. There's maybe one guy in West Belfast who's like, what are you, dickhead? But it's not actively being discussed.
Yeah, it's not.
In different circles.
It's not a committee meeting.
No, they're not like Shane Todd keeps showing up at these fucking events. But I'd have done it for the opposite.
Yeah.
You know?
Who's the opposite?
Stand up at Jerry Adams' birthday. I do a set. 100%. Think of the fucking roast you could give him.
I'd love to.
Jerry, good to see you here, although you might not be here. Fucking really good, really good. Be class.
That could be. Yeah, you might not get it.
Jerry, check under your car. He looks like it's a cake. You know what I mean? It's a cake. But I mean, I just have a bit of material that I was too young to really make it work, and it wasn't that funny. But it was about the IRA going on a charm campaign. So they'd ring people and be government buildings and all, and be like, listen, he's at 15 minutes to get out. and get the Donald Ice Bowl. We've laid on some bowling and food for you, you know. and yeah, the fucking robot bomb diffuser thing just pulling out a cake.
It's a cake. Johnny Five.
It wasn't as funny as I'm describing it now. I remember I was doing a gig in Strabane, and I said I must have done that material then, and then some guy in the audience went, Johnny Five, and I was like, who the fuck is Johnny Five? And he goes, the wee robot, and I was like, that's bullshit, that's not true.
Well, Johnny Five, you know what Johnny Five is?
Yeah. But I then thought the
they actually called
was called Johnny Five.
Right, okay, no, I just show my age by quoting on the.
And I was like, then that undermines it when the police are like, listen, we need to go to like an active bomb scene. Someone get Johnny Five. I was like, they didn't need to call him that. Johnny Five.
Imagine news reporter. Army bomb disposal experts have brought out Johnny Five.
Johnny Five is live at the scene. Yeah, fuck. I mean, at the minute, I would do a gig for anyone. Dictators.
Yeah, it's getting desperate levels at this stage.
If Trump had got back in, I'd have done 5 at the inauguration.
That's still to come too. We've got all that to come out as well. That's all. This should finish up before the 20th of January.
Final question: how does that play out? There's no way he's getting back in. Is there?
Absolutely getting back in.
No. You think that next year?
On the 20th of January, I believe Donald Trump will be inaugurated.
Now that's a big statement, and a lot of time with those statements.
When does this go out?
21st January. A lot of time with those statements, sometimes I think it's like it's like girls showing up to a house party when you're at secondary school. It's sometimes it feels like a guy being like, they'll be here, and you're like,
I can't see how they don't, unless. Sorry, I should say a caveat to that. If it's not, it's a new election. I don't see it going the way it is with the court cases. The media keeps talking about the court cases are keeping thrown out, but they're not his cases. There are other cases being done that obviously aren't prepared and stuff. They, as in Giuliani and Jenna Ellis, they have 3 cases live, and they're ultimately going to end up in the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court's going to decide, and once they see the evidence, I can't see how they won't overturn the election or call a new one. Because this is the weird thing we talk about in our podcast. You don't have to produce your voter ID when you go to vote.
What do you mean? You can just
walk on and just vote. You don't need to have any ID to prove you are the person that says on your electoral card.
I feel it's like a bad system.
Bad system. Don't forget, these are the people who went to Iraq.
Maybe you have to promise
teach people how to do open and fair
but maybe you have to promise or whatever. Maybe you go in and go, Shane Todd. And
I promise. I swear to God.
Do you swear?
Yeah,
but then some people might have their fingers crossed secretly in their pocket.
See, that's what the Bible's for.
Yeah, true.
Keep one hand on the Bible, another hand up. You see, then it keeps no fingers crossed.
Next time you come on, let's talk about the Bible. Yeah, cheers for coming on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the tea.
Yeah, and bring some of that hair product next time.
I can give you some now, you want.
Good. Social distancing, can you reach?
Look where I was shot me, like.